Hello guys, welcome back to LR Anime. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Soul Land 2 Part 139 based on novel. So let's start. Elder Song said, I agree with what you described earlier, but I'll need a more detailed plan. Devise a plan tonight, and we'll discuss it with the Heavenly Soul Empire tomorrow, so that the mission can start quickly. Elder Song, Hui Yu Hao still wanted to say something, but he was stopped by Elder Song. Young man, never decline to shoulder a responsibility. Don't forget, you're also one of the members of the Sea Gods Pavilion. Don't throw the face of your teacher. What else could Hui Yu Hao say now that Elder Mu had been brought into the conversation? He took a deep breath and nodded seriously. Thank you, Elder Song and Dean Yang, for your trust in me. I'll do my best. Elder Song smiled and said, don't blame us for doing this. We're already old, and our brains aren't working as well as they used to. You're about the right age. Alright, discuss your plan. If you need us to do anything, you can just inform us tomorrow. We'll go and rest first. After she finished speaking, Elder Song stood up and proceeded to her room. She was truly feeling relaxed after pushing the responsibility away. Elder Song's trust indeed gave Hui Yu Hao pressure. He smiled bitterly at Bei Bei, but Bei Bei turned his head away while revealing a slight grin on his face. When Shen Ziwen didn't agree to let Hui Yu Hao join this mission, Bei Bei had felt very depressed. He knew very well what Hui Yu Hao could do. Elder Song's words had resonated with him. In the entire Shrek Academy, Hui Yu Hao was the one who had interacted most with the Sun Moon Empire's Soul Engineer Legions. He had even attained impressive results. Without him, the Star Luo Empire couldn't have regained control of the Mingdo mountain range, and the entire situation of the war would have been very different right now. Hui Yu Hao didn't know that he was already an expert on military matters in Shrek Academy. While Elder Song appeared to be pushing the responsibility onto him, she was in fact placing her trust in him, and hoped that this could help to further train him. In the future, the Academy was going to send 3 Soul Engineer Legions to join the war. They would need an outstanding marshal. The Soul Engineer Legions were formed by students and teachers, as well as externally hired Soul Masters. All of them had joined willingly. All 3 empires of the original Doluor continent would surely be watching them very closely. During a conference of the Sea Gods Pavilion, it had already been decided that the 3 Soul Engineer Legions could only be led by someone from Shrek, and not anyone else from the other 3 empires. It wasn't that they couldn't be trusted. It was that this project involved their interests, and there might be a conflict of interests if the Soul Engineer Legions were led by any of the empires. But Shrek City was only a city, and Shrek Academy was a Soul Master and Soul Engineer Academy. It wasn't a military academy. There were very few who knew much about military matters. In such a situation, someone like Hui Yu Hao was needed to help alleviate the pressure on the academy. As a result, Elder Song intentionally wanted to build Hui Yu Hao's expertise in military matters. At the same time, it was a test for him. Earlier, the operations that Hui Yu Hao were a part of didn't involve anyone from the senior management of Shrek Academy. This time, Elder Song and Yang Shaozhe could directly observe his abilities. This battlefield was definitely the best place for him to demonstrate his abilities. Naturally, Hui Yu Hao didn't know the intention behind Elder Song's decision. He was only a little stressed out right now. For me to command Elder Song and Dean Yang, it's really a little. Elder Song left, but Yang Shaozhe didn't. He nodded at Hui Yu Hao. Alright, let's make a detailed plan. Everyone, contribute your thoughts. Bei Bei said, Yu Hao, you should be the one coming up with the plan. I only have one request. In this plan, our safety must be the first priority, especially for you. You must not expose yourself to any danger. Otherwise, I'd rather you didn't save Xiao Ya. Do you understand? Hui Yu Hao sighed in his heart. How was it possible for them to avoid danger if they wanted to rescue Tang Ya? However, he still nodded and said, the overall plan is in the direction that I mentioned earlier. I'll need a few days. First, we'll survey the Sun Moon Empire's army at an extremely high altitude. At the same time, we need to gather some information on the Sun Moon Empire from the Heavenly Soul Empire. For example, how many Soul Engineer Legions does the Sun Moon Empire have? How many advanced tier Soul Engineers do they have? What kind of advanced tier Soul tools do they have? Of course, I'll verify all these through my surveillance. The Sun Moon Empire is definitely prepared. They'll use some kind of method to hide their strength and power. Bei Bei nodded and said, it's still the same words. Whether it's your surveillance or our operation, safety comes first. Hui Yu Hao nodded. Alright, let's discuss the plan in detail. He lifted his head to look at the others, who turned their attention to him. Shusansha even directly said, "Little Junior, don't look down on us. Since Elder Song has given you the reins, we're all your soldiers now. We'll do whatever you want." Hu Yuhao laughed bitterly. "It's not easy being the one in charge. Third senior, come up with an idea too." Shusansha immediately shook his head and said, "I have no idea. I'm not skilled in this anymore. You can decide." Hu Yuhao then looked at the rest, and they also turned their heads away. When his gaze reached Yi Gai and Nan Chocho, both of them burst out laughing. Hu Yuhao sighed in annoyance and said, "Since this is the case, we'll begin with the surveillance first. After that, we'll come up with a detailed plan." Without sufficient intelligence and surveillance, he couldn't come up with a concrete plan. "Do I need to come with you?" Yang Shaozha asked. Hu Yuhao shook his head and said, "No. Dean Yang, you can rest. I'll perform surveillance tonight. The Sun Moon Empire will never discover me, unless they've developed a new aerial surveillance soul tool." Yang Shaozha smiled and replied, "All right then, you can go then. Take care of your safety. Let our contacts from the Heavenly Soul Empire escort you out of the city. You'll only go into the sky when you leave the city, so as to prevent any misunderstandings." All right. Heavenly Spirit City was on high alert right now. Although the Heavenly Soul Empire couldn't compare to the Sun Moon Empire in terms of aerial surveillance soul tools, there were still some aerial surveillance soul tools around. After Hu Yuhao found his contact from the army, the contact immediately reported to his superiors. In just a while, Princess Wei Na personally came over. The moment they met, she eagerly asked, "Are you going to survey the Sun Moon Empire?" Hu Yuhao nodded and answered, "Yes, any operation has to be built on credible intelligence from a surveillance mission." Wei Na thought for a moment before saying, "I would like to go with you." "What?" Hu Yuhao was shocked. "What kind of joke are you playing? How can someone as important as you follow me? Although it's not that dangerous, it should never happen." Wei Na smiled and said, "Please let me go. I've been in the background all this while and never participated in any fighting at the front line. I only want to do something for my empire. In fact, if not for this thought, I would have left with Aotian." "What?" Hu Yuhao opened his eyes wide. "Aotian? Long Aotian?" He clearly remembered that the body sect had appeared during the soul dueling tournament. Long Aotian, who possessed a white-silver level body soul, was very strong. No one from Shrek 7 Monsters could challenge him in a duel. Furthermore, Long Aotian was Princess Wei Na's fiancé. Wei Na sadly replied, "Yes, he's gone. Otherwise, why would I have suggested those conditions to you? To protect me, he died from a soul ray unleashed by a Class 9 soul tool. I wanted to leave him with then, but I had no choice but to remain alive for my country. Aotian is dead and so is my heart. Yuhao, I don't want to talk too much. Just let me go with you. You should know that I also have twin martial souls. Furthermore, my two martial souls are quite similar to yours. Although they are weaker, you'll find things easier with my aid. I'm already a soul emperor now. I won't burden you." Right now, Princess Wei Na was being truthful. As he saw the sorrowful look in her eyes and thought of Wang Donga, Hu Yuhao couldn't bring himself to reject her. He only nodded and said, "All right, but you have to listen to me." "Okay. It's a promise." Wei Na rubbed her tears away before nodding at Hu Yuhao. Long Aotian was actually dead. Now that he thought of their fight on the tournament stage, Hu Yuhao couldn't help but feel heavy in his heart. Wei Na led Hu Yuhao to the outside of the city. With her around, a lot of trouble was avoided while they left the city. Hu Yuhao softly asked, "Your Highness, how great are the body sect's losses?" Wei Na's body stiffened up, and she turned to Hu Yuhao. Seeing her red eyes, he hurriedly added, "You can forget it if it's not convenient to reveal the figures." Wei Na smiled bitterly, "It's fine. The body sect had 11 titled Doluor, but 3 are currently dead, including my teacher. Another 4 are critically injured. They can't join the war for now. More than a third of the body sect's disciples are dead too." Hu Yuhao was shocked after hearing her words. "There are so many casualties." Wei Na nodded and said, "The Sun Moon Empire once targeted us in an execution when they attacked Heaven Do City. They ambushed us in the night and used some kind of special soul tool to disrupt our aerial surveillance soul tools. After that, a Soul Engineer Legion suddenly appeared above Heaven Do City. They locked onto specific, strong individuals on our side using their own aerial surveillance soul tools and tried to assassinate them. It was then that we suffered heavy losses. There were also many evil soul masters with them. If not for the fact that my teacher chased them away even with his injuries, the imperial family would have been wiped out. Hu Yuhao was silent. The advantage that the Sun Moon Empire had in terms of soul tools meant that they could use a lot of strategies. If not for Wei Na's words, he wouldn't have expected the Sun Moon Empire to come up with such a tactic. Interference soul tool? They were indeed exploiting their advantages. Wei Na looked at Hu Yuhao seriously and said, "Let me go with you. Although my abilities are beneath yours, I'm the most suitable person to help you. I'm just like you. I have twin martial souls. And if you remember, you should know that our martial souls are similar." Similar? Hu Yuhao was slightly moved when he heard this. Yes, Princess Wei Na's twin martial souls are indeed quite similar to mine. One of her martial souls is a snow lotus, an auxiliary and healing type martial soul. It also contains the elements of ice and snow. Her other martial soul is even stronger. It's her brain. Even in the body sect, she was one of the most talented. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been rated so highly. Her white-silver level body sect had gone through its second mutation, and she was once the main control-type soul master of the Snow Demon sect's team. Seeing that Hu Yuhao was hesitating, Wei Na hurriedly said, "Furthermore, you can avoid a lot of unnecessary trouble if I'm around. I have a signaler that belongs to the Heavenly Soul Empire. With me around, you won't have to worry about being mistaken for the enemy." Hu Yuhao sighed softly as he saw how persistent she was. He said, "All right then. However, you must listen to me. Since you're going with me, I have to ensure your safety." "Okay." Wei Na agreed without any hesitation. The signaler on Wei Na would definitely make things much more convenient. The two of them took off right from the ground and proceeded straight for the sky. Just like Wei Na had said, her cultivation was that of a soul emperor now. Along with a flying-type soul tool, she was quick in the air. Even though the Heavenly Soul Empire lagged far behind the Sun Moon Empire in terms of soul tools, Wei Na still had access to the best soul tools in the empire, since she was a princess. Hu Yuhao shot straight up into the sky with her and rose higher and higher. He didn't flaunt his skills either, and also used a flying-type soul tool to fly. The two of them were far off from the ground in just a while. The scenery below them also became more and more blurry. When both of them were more than 2,000 meters in the sky, Wei Na slowed down. After all, she was only a soul emperor. Even though her snow lotus helped her to resist the cold, her soul power would start to be drained at a much quicker speed the higher she flew. However, she didn't trouble Hu Yuhao. The flying-type soul tool behind her shone subtly. Hu Yuhao suddenly sensed that at least 4 milk bottles had released soul power undulations into her flying-type soul tool, continuously pouring in soul power. Hu Yuhao naturally didn't face such a problem. Very soon, the two of them were close to 3,000 meters in the sky. At such an altitude, Wei Na was evidently a little overwhelmed. Her flying speed dropped greatly. She looked at Hu Yuhao beside her. From the start until the end, Hu Yuhao's flying remained very normal. Although he didn't use any special abilities or speed, Wei Na was still very impressed with him. They were both the same age, and he was even slightly younger, but he was already so strong. It seems like he is indeed much stronger than he was before. No wonder the Star Luo Empire said that it was his surveillance that helped them regain control of the Mingdo mountain range. "Yuhao, is this altitude fine?" Wei Na asked Hu Yuhao. Hu Yuhao answered, "Not yet. This only puts us in line with the Sun Moon Empire's high-altitude aerial surveillance soul tools. We need to go higher to prevent being discovered." Wei Na was confused as she asked, "But can we even see anything if we fly further up?" It's night time too. There were soul masters from the Heavenly Soul Empire who could fly even higher. A titled Doluor could reach an altitude of up to 5,000 meters. However, such an altitude put one very far from the ground. It was difficult to see anything, much less perform any surveillance. Moreover, this didn't include the presence of clouds and fog that might reduce visibility. Hu Yuhao asked, "Have you forgotten? My martial soul is my eyes." "Oh." Wei Na didn't say anything else. Hu Yuhao's figure flashed, and he arrived behind Wei Na. She subconsciously turned towards him. Hu Yuhao extended his right hand and grabbed the center of her flying-type soul tool. Wei Na suddenly felt that her body was lighter. Following this, she rose into the sky at a much faster speed. Under Hu Yuhao's charge, they flew higher and higher. Just as Wei Na was shocked, she couldn't help but re-evaluate her judgment of Hu Yuhao's cultivation. She also possessed a spiritual-type martial soul, And it was the strongest body soul one could have, the brain. Although her spiritual detection couldn't rival Hua Yuhao's, she could still clearly sense the changes in him from such close distance. At least, she knew that Hua Yuhao wasn't using any milk bottles to aid him. His soul power undulations became stronger as they flew up once again. However, her spiritual detection couldn't detect how strong Hua Yuhao's spiritual power was. She sighed silently in her heart. Initially, when she had joined the body sect, she had thought that she was the best soul master along with Long Aotian in the younger generation of soul masters. However, after she interacted with those from Shrek Academy, she fully understood that those from Shrek weren't inferior to her at all. Hua Yuhao was one of them. He was so far ahead of her that she couldn't even tell how strong he was anymore. They continued rising until they reached an altitude of 4,000 meters. Hua Yuhao slowed down at this altitude. Although his cultivation wasn't weak, he would drain too much of his energy if he continued to go any higher. Furthermore, in Hua Yuhao's opinion, they were at an altitude that was no longer detectable by high-altitude aerial surveillance soul tools. They started to fly horizontally now. He led Princess Wei Na towards the Sun Moon Empire's military base. At this moment, soul power undulations spread from his body. Following this, Hua Yuhao sensed pure and gentle soul power surging into his body. There was even a redolent aura that came with it. Suddenly, his spiritual and soul power were greatly replenished. They might even have been boosted. He felt much more energetic now. Wei Na nodded at him as he lowered it to look at her. In her palm, there was a snow lotus that exuded a gentle glow. With Hua Yuhao helping her fly, what Wei Na had to do was resist the cold. She didn't want to become a burden. By unleashing her snow lotus, she also greatly replenished Hua Yuhao's energy. At this moment, Wei Na sensed gentle spiritual undulations coming from Hua Yuhao. The light around his body distorted slightly. Wei Na's spiritual power was also rather strong. She immediately realized what he was doing and asked in shock, "Are you using your spiritual type soul skill to distort light?" Hua Yuhao shook his head and replied, "No, I have a soul skill called imitation. I can assimilate with my surroundings and conceal myself." Wei Na suddenly understood, and said, "No wonder you're so good at surveillance. This is why. Concealing yourself before using your spiritual detection to perform surveillance. You can even use your ice-type soul power to avoid thermal detectors. I understand now." Hua Yuhao didn't make a sound, but he was impressed with how clever she was. However, Wei Na was only excited for a moment before she looked a little slumped. Even though she knew how Hua Yuhao did it, she couldn't copy him. Her martial soul was her brain, not her eyes. Her vision was much weaker than his. Instead, her brain could unleash offensive soul skills. For example, the Banshee's wail that she had once unleashed brought a lot of problems to the Tang sect's team. Hua Yuhao's spirit eyes weren't as strong as Wei Na's brain. However, he had a natural advantage over her. When he obtained his first soul ring from the Skydream Iceworm, it was already destined that no one could rival the talent of his spiritual type martial soul anymore. All the soul rings that he had obtained after that were mostly auxiliary. However, it was precisely because he gave up his offensiveness that his spirit eyes became stronger. In terms of control, he held a natural advantage. To ordinary soul masters, even for soul masters with twin martial souls like Nana, they wouldn't forego their offensiveness when they added more soul rings. Very soon, they slowly came closer to the sky directly above the Sun Moon Empire's military base. Hua Yuhao looked down. He didn't use his spiritual detection, but purely used his spirit eyes to see. He didn't want to alarm anyone. As he gained more and more experience, he became more and more cautious too. As he observed the Sun Moon Empire's military base, he also unleashed his spiritual detection sharing. Wei Na only felt that everything in front of her had brightened, and the pitch-black night sky had all of a sudden become clear. The image in front of her was quickly enlarged. Her body shook slightly from the astonishment. This is a godly skill. At least, it is during surveillance. If our empire had such a talented soul master, we wouldn't have been defeated so badly. The Heavenly Soul Empire had finally realized the importance of surveillance after paying the price of losing 2/3 of its land following the appearance of a new generation of soul tools. In terms of fighting strength, the Heavenly Soul Empire wasn't so inferior to the Sun Moon Empire that they were invaded and battered so easily. Apart from soul tools, the Heavenly Soul Empire also lacked greatly in their surveillance abilities. From the start until the end, the Heavenly Soul Empire was the passive one, and didn't even know when the enemy would appear, or how much strength they possessed. This was why they had lost so badly. Just as Wei Na was in shock, Hua Yuhao had already carefully observed the setup of the Sun Moon Empire's base. He had fought the Sun Moon Empire's armies quite a number of times. As a result, he could roughly tell what their setup was. Very soon, his expression turned grim, and he was stunned. If he had to describe their base, he would describe it as impenetrable. The entire base was shaped like a long snake. However, it wasn't completely horizontal. Rather, it was built in such a way that it fit the geographical structure of the land. More importantly, Hua Yuhao discovered 5 soul formations in the base. Each of these soul formations could only be built by an entire Soul Engineer Legion. This meant that the Sun Moon Empire had 5 Soul Engineer Legions here. Not to even mention the number of Soul Engineer Legions in the hand that protects the nation there were here, 5 Soul Engineer Legions were already sufficient to ensure that they were well protected. If a full-blown conflict happened here, they would be extremely destructive. The Sun Moon Empire hadn't gotten to starting one yet, probably because they had been greatly drained in their previous fights, and needed time to recuperate and regroup. What Hua Yuhao saw was also seen by Princess Wei Na. She had some understanding of the Sun Moon Empire's army. Through this surveillance, she also got a clearer look at things that she wasn't aware of before. Hua Yuhao sighed slightly and said, 5 soul formations. Even an ultimate Doluor would find it difficult to breach their base. Your Highness, how many Soul Engineer Legions from the hand that protects the nation are here? Wei Na replied, 2. One is the Imperial Dragon Soul Engineer Legion, and the other is the Terraclaw Soul Engineer Legion. Hua Yuhao's heart sank once again. Among the 5 Soul Engineer Legions in the hand that protects the nation, the strongest was undoubtedly the Sun Moon Imperial Soul Engineer Legion. The remaining 4 Beast Lord-ranked Soul Engineer Legions had differences in their abilities. Among them, the strongest was the Imperial Dragon Soul Engineer Legion, followed by the Terraclaw Soul Engineer Legion and the Phoenix Soul Engineer Legion. The weakest was the Evil Tyrant Soul Engineer Legion. The Imperial Dragon Soul Engineer Legion and Terraclaw Soul Engineer Legion were both here. This represented more than half the strength of the 4 Beast Lord-ranked Soul Engineer Legions. No wonder the Heavenly Soul Empire found things so difficult here. Alright, this is all we can see from such an altitude. We have to return. Hua Yuhao said to Wei Na. In fact, if he were the only one, he would carry out a series of surveillance passes. He might even go lower, or use his spiritual detection. However, he couldn't do that with Princess Wei Na around. He had to ensure her safety. At this moment, Hua Yuhao felt an omen. This omen didn't come from his spiritual detection or soul power undulations. It came from his 3-eyed golden lion skull. It was the warning given to him by his power of destiny. Not right. He subconsciously looked down, and discovered that one of the soul formations below was shining with red light. Shit! Hua Yuhao shouted. Following this, he grabbed Wei Na's flying-type soul tool with both his hands and spun around in the sky, flinging her away with all his strength. By the time she reacted, her body was already flung like a cannon shell. Hua Yuhao quickly rose into the sky. By tossing her away, Hua Yuhao had already wasted some valuable time that he could have used to flee. It would be very difficult to avoid the enemy's attack now. He could only rise further into the sky. The higher the altitude, the weaker soul power was. Furthermore, Hua Yuhao even used his instant teleportation to go higher up. Just as he finished this, a beam of red light shot into the sky. It grazed through 4,000 meters of sky and engulfed Hua Yuhao. This beam of red light was more than 100 meters wide. Although it only flashed once before disappearing, its aura was overwhelming, and made it seem as if the entire sky had been pierced. When Wei Na saw the red light sweeping past from the distance before Hua Yuhao was engulfed by it, she opened her mouth in shock, and was completely stunned in place. At an altitude of 4,000 meters without Hua Yuhao's help, she only barely managed to keep herself up in the sky. Before she reacted even further, Hua Yuhao's voice suddenly sounded in her head. What are you waiting for? Why aren't you leaving? Following this, a black figure flashed past and grabbed her. As Hua Yuhao unleashed his imitation once again, he quickly fled into the distance at his quickest possible speed. Fortunately, that red light only struck once before it eventually dimmed and disappeared. Yuhao, are you fine? Princess Wei Na only reacted now. Although she didn't know what that red light was, she at least knew that it wasn't fireworks. How strong did it have to be if it could travel 4,000 meters into the sky? If not for Hua Yuhao, she would have been dead by now. What Wei Na didn't see was that pitch-black scales were slowly fading away on Hua Yuhao's body, while his clothes had already been torn apart. Huo Yuhao only truly knew how terrifying that strike was after experiencing it. Furthermore, he knew exactly where it came from. It had come from linked offensive soul tools. It had to be. Right now, Huo Yuhao was completely astonished. That red light was high energy and high heat. The instantaneous surge of temperature sparked by that red light even melted his Ice Emperor armor. Huo Yuhao had even unleashed a Class 6 invincible barrier, but it was vaporized too. Eventually, he had used Di Tian's reverse scale to protect his body. However, his clothes weren't that fortunate. Huo Yuhao clearly knew that he would have been critically hurt even if he didn't die, if not for Di Tian's strength. It was pertinent to note that the red light only struck him after traveling 4,000 meters up into the sky. If it was closer, it would have been even more terrifying. Fortunately, the same attack didn't come again. The Sun Moon Empire's base also appeared to be very peaceful. Huo Yuhao brought Princess Wei Na all the way until they were above Heaven Do City before they landed. When Princess Wei Na could control her own flying again, Huo Yuhao retrieved a new set of clothes to wear. That was a real scare. Huo Yuhao's hair was still standing on end. When the two of them landed, Huo Yuhao saw that Princess Wei Na was very pale. He wasn't faring much better either. Although she was still scared out of her wits, Princess Wei Na couldn't help but ask, "Yuhao, what was that attack earlier? How did the Sun Moon Empire discover us and lock onto our position?" Understanding the Sun Moon Empire's setup was very important to the Heavenly Soul Empire. Huo Yuhao replied, "If I'm not wrong, that attack should have come from linked offensive soul tools. This means that one of the Soul Engineer legions locked onto us, and a linked attack was fired from their soul formation. Although it was weakened as it progressed through the air, it was still very strong. I'm not sure how they locked onto us. However, it had to be through a surveillance soul tool. It seems like the Sun Moon Empire has made new progress in terms of ground-based surveillance soul tools. They're actually able to see 4,000 meters into the air." After hearing his words, Princess Wei Na couldn't help but turn gloomy. Originally, the gap between the Heavenly Soul Empire and Sun Moon Empire was already very great. If this gap was widened further, wouldn't that signify destruction for the Heavenly Soul Empire? Huo Yuhao tried to comfort her upon seeing her expression. "Your Highness, don't be too worried. If I'm not wrong, the Sun Moon Empire's ground-based surveillance soul tools can't produce a wide effect even if they detect up to a further distance. They can't sweep the sky. We must have triggered one of their ground-based surveillance soul tools accidentally. Otherwise, the attacks should have come in waves. We weren't attacked after the first strike. They must have lost track of us." Wei Na laughed bitterly. "You don't have to comfort me. I know the difference between us and the Sun Moon Empire. I'm sorry I dragged you down. If not for me, you wouldn't have been hit by that beam of light." She was smart. She clearly knew what had happened earlier. If Huo Yuhao hadn't bothered with her and just fled, he would have been able to escape the attack. Huo Yuhao smiled and said, "We're allies. Let's not talk about this anymore. However, I'm afraid they'll tighten their defenses after this incident. I'm afraid I can't bring you along the next time." Wei Na tilted her head slightly and reached into her pockets, retrieved a small pouch, and gave it to Huo Yuhao. "This is the highest tier signal soul tool from our side. If you have this, you will never be attacked by friendly forces." Huo Yuhao naturally understood the princess's intentions, and he didn't reject her gift as he took it and placed it in his own pocket. Wei Na stared at him deeply and said, "Yuhao, gratitude cannot be voiced for the great favors that you have given us. I will remember that. I need to hurry back so that I can log what I've seen today. Intelligence like that is far too precious." "All right." Huo Yuhao turned around and walked into his own courtyard after watching Wei Na leave. He contemplated his experiences in the air as he walked. Such powerful linked offensive soul tools. An attack like that would probably severely injure even a titled Doluor. Fortunately, I had imitation to conceal myself continuously so I didn't have to suffer continuous attacks. Otherwise, the consequences could have been disastrous. At the least, Princess Wei Na wouldn't have returned with her life. However, Huo Yuhao was starting to feel that the Beast God's reverse scale had its benefits, and increasingly so. At least, it provided protection for him in his most perilous moments. Otherwise, he would need quite some time to recover if he returned with severe injuries, even though his own body was quite tough. "What can we do to find teacher Xiao Ya? The Sun Moon Empire's camp is like a metal plate. It's just too difficult." Huo Yuhao returned to his room with those questions, and removed his outer shirt as he crossed his legs and meditated. Hua Yuhao reported the results of his investigation to Elder Song and Yang Xiaozhe at daybreak. However, he didn't mention that Princess Wei Yana went with him, and only told them that he discovered the linked offensive Soul Tools attack and evaded it before he hurried back. Everyone's faces grew solemn when they heard Hua Yuhao's description. Elder Song lowered her voice and said, "Why don't I accompany you tonight? That attack is powerful, but I should have no problem protecting you." Hua Yuhao thought for a moment and said, "That's perfect. But, Elder Song, there is something else I want to do." Hey! Elder Song glanced at Hua Yuhao confusedly. Hua Yuhao's eyes sparkled. "I want to see just how far the Sun Moon Empire's ground-based aerial surveillance Soul Tools can reach. We can only win our battles if we understand our enemies fully." Elder Song nodded. She believed that with her around, the Sun Moon Empire's linked offensive Soul Tools couldn't possibly hurt Hua Yuhao no matter how powerful they were. Hua Yuhao didn't obtain any accurate information, but he could guess that the Sun Moon Empire's advances in ground-based aerial surveillance Soul Tools likely occurred because of the multiple losses that he had caused them one after another. Their ground-based aerial surveillance Soul Tools were probably developed specifically for him. Furthermore, he could be sure that they were oscillation detectors. To be able to target oscillation detectors so high up in the sky was extremely astonishing, even if their waves were compressed. The Sun Moon Empire had an absolute advantage in their industrial capabilities. The Sun Moon Empire's radiant city, inside the royal palace. There was a silent, very large room. It was almost 200 square meters, while it was ornamented with the luxury and spectacle that only the royal family could have. A handsome youth was sitting next to a table and eating some delicious food, and he seemed like he was really enjoying himself. Dum, dum, dum. A soft knocking could be heard at the door. The youth's eyes immediately lit up as he swiftly stood up and glanced in the door's direction. "Please come in." The door opened, and a beautiful lady dressed in palace clothes walked in. Her hair was tied into a bun above her head, and her luxurious golden dress made her seem even more noble and elegant. Her skin was fair and almost translucent, like water would come out if someone squeezed her skin. The door closed, and the room's atmosphere instantly became a lot more pleasant with such a gorgeous lady inside. "Royal sister." The youth discreetly swallowed some saliva as he called out softly, "Yes." The girl blushed a little, and she seemed shy and bashful as she gradually walked towards the table. "Aren't you going to ask me to sit down?" Oh. Please sit down." The expensively dressed youth spoke a little awkwardly. The girl gradually sat down as she lowered her head and said embarrassedly, "I'm a little nervous, royal brother." "I'm a little nervous, too. Why don't you eat something first, sister?" The youth stared at the girl's neck, which resembled that of an elegant swan, and the passion in his eyes was slowly sparked as even his voice began to tremble a little. He had been pining after this girl for a long time, but had never had the guts to do anything about it. Who knew that such a fantastic opportunity would befall him today? This was much more wonderful than a snack from the gods. This snack wasn't just a snack, it was also absolutely delicious. The girl gradually lifted her head as she bit down on her lower lip and said gently, "Do you really dare to, royal brother?" The youth was momentarily stunned before he snickered and said, "Of course, I wouldn't normally dare to. But this is an order, and is something that my royal brother wants me to do. What else should I be afraid of? My brother has already shut me in for so many days to keep this secret. But I felt that everything was worth it no matter what price I had to pay when I saw you. You're so beautiful, royal sister." The girl smiled plainly and said, "Since you know that he wants to keep this secret, aren't you afraid that once the thing is done, he will kill you for it?" The youth laughed and said, "How is that possible? We are cousins, and in the family hierarchy, I'm ranked among the first few who will be heir to the throne. Without the family's order, who dares to touch me? My brother hasn't been on the throne for too long, and even though he seems quite stable up there, if he dares to touch me, The young girl heaved a faint sigh and said, "You're thinking too much, royal brother, and you have underestimated your brother's methods. If he were so merciful, how could he become emperor?" Hey! The youth's expression changed a little as he lowered his voice and said, "What do you mean, royal sister?" The young girl smiled and shook her head. "I don't mean anything. I just want you to understand before you die. You." The youth suddenly stood up. Suddenly, he felt a wave of dizziness come over his head as he stared at the girl in front of him with an incredulous look in his eyes. The girl slowly stood up, and the faint but fragrant aroma on her body dampened as she made a grab at the youth. The youth's body immediately flew backwards and landed on the bed as he lost consciousness. The young girl's face, which originally had a faint smile on it, immediately turned cold. "I'm sorry, royal brother. Blame your brother if you wish to blame someone. She held a sharp spike-shaped object in her hands as she spoke and walked towards the bed. 15 minutes later, the girl appeared inside a royal hall. It's done, Your Majesty. The girl spoke gently. The person sitting on the throne was none other than the Sun Moon Empire's emperor, Shu Tianran, while this luxuriously dressed girl was Ju Zi. Thank you, Ju Zi. Please stand up. Shu Tianran waved his hand at her with a smile on her face. However, one could see upon closer inspection that his smile contained a kind of awkwardness and bitterness that was hard to detect. Shu Tianran said, "Go and prepare. You have to begin as soon as possible to maintain activity. The royal doctor is already prepared." "Yes, Your Majesty," Ju Zi nodded gently as she turned to leave. She had just walked out of the hall when a dark shadow soundlessly appeared where she was before. He knelt down on one knee toward Shu Tianran and said, "Prince Tianhe has passed away, and it's confirmed that the Empress did it herself. His life was taken in one hit, his heart was pierced, and he died. All right, you may leave. Tell the royal doctor to see me after his inspection," Shu Tianran answered coldly. "Yes." The dark shadow departed soundlessly as Shu Tianran gradually stood up and paced around the room with his prosthetic legs. His face was overcast. Prince Tianhe's blood was very pure, and even though he was lazy and didn't have a high cultivation rank, he was the most suitable target. Shu Tianran felt as if his heart had been cut by a knife. Even though he had always treated Ju Zi as one of his most important chess pieces, they had spent so many years together, so how could he not develop any feelings for her? However, he couldn't do what normal males could, and the royal family needed an heir. Thus, he had to devise such a devious plan. Ju Zi didn't need to have any physical contact with Prince Tianhe even if she wanted his seed. That could be accomplished with the Sun Moon Empire's technology. What was amusing was that Prince Tianhe thought he had taken the advantage. His death by Ju Zi's hands was also Shu Tianran's order. The reason why Shu Tianran chose to do this was simple. Ju Zi couldn't go back once she killed Prince Tianhe, because her life would be over if this piece of news was spread. At the same time, Prince Tianhe would become the future heir's true father if she was taking his seed. How could Shu Tianran allow such a person to live in the world? He wouldn't be afraid of Ju Zi telling her crown prince anything in the future if he died at her hands. At the same time, this was a measure to tie Ju Zi even closer to himself. Shu Tianran knew that his actions were very selfish and very cruel, and that was especially so for Ju Zi, who had always been loyal to him. However, he couldn't rest if he hadn't done all this. He was one of the most ambitious and ruthless characters of his time. He would never let anything escape his grasp. "I'll compensate Ju Zi slowly in the future, but before that..." Shu Tianran's eyes flashed coldly as his thoughts stopped there. It didn't take long before an elderly royal doctor walked in from outside and knelt down in front of Shu Tianran. "How is it?" Shu Tianran asked coldly. The royal physician deliberately lowered his voice and said, "Your Majesty, the Empress is still perfect." The iciness on Shu Tianran's face mostly vanished after he heard his words. He felt as if an enormous burden had been lifted from his chest as he muttered under his breath, "I'm sorry, Ju Zi, I was overthinking. I will treat you well as long as you don't betray me." He then said to the man kneeling on the floor, "You may go, royal physician, and take care of the Empress. Make sure this goes well." "Yes," the royal physician said respectfully, "Rest assured, Your Majesty, as I have checked the Empress' body many times. She is very healthy, and today is the most opportune time for her to become pregnant. I am more than 90% confident that I can help the Empress get pregnant." The royal physician was just speaking his mind honestly, but he was completely unaware that his last sentence sounded vaguely ambiguous, and Shu Tianran's eyes flickered murderously in response. Of course, from the beginning to the end, he was never going to let anybody who had anything to do with this live. "Go. Once it's complete, I will reward you heavily." "Thank you, Your Majesty." Ju Zi was also in a silent room. She was lying down on a bed, only covered by a clean white gown. Her eyes were very calm, but there was a dash of coldness deep within them. "Shu Tianran, Shu Tianran, Shu Tianran." Ju Zi repeated that name continuously in her heart. "Shu Tianran, I haven't misjudged you after all. I have been so loyal to you, but you treat me like that. Good, very good. It's a pity that no matter how intelligent you are clueless that I have already been prepared for all this. How could I bear a child for a stranger? Are you ready, Empress? You might feel some pain in a while." The royal physician's warm voice could be heard. "All right, royal physician. You may begin." Ju Zi answered plainly. "All right, then." Please give me the seed that you have prepared. The royal physician spoke respectfully. Juzi lifted her hand, and a small metal tube appeared in the center of her palm as she slowly passed it to the physician. There was a tinge of tenderness on her facial expression at this moment, and the name Shu Tianran gradually disappeared from her mind, while another name took its place. High up in the night sky. 4,500 meters. This was an altitude of 4,500 meters. Hua Yuhao was hovering silently in midair. He had already appeared once more above the Sun Moon Empire's army camp. He made sure he was as vigilant as he could be while he quietly observed the army camp beneath him. At the same time, he tried to sense whatever dangers could appear at any moment. 4,500 meters. I wonder if the Sun Moon Empire's ground-based aerial surveillance soul tools can still discover me. Hua Yuhao squinted a little as he bided his time quietly. Several minutes quickly passed, but nothing was happening beneath him. The red light that he had encountered the previous night didn't appear. A faint smile gradually appeared at the corner of Hua Yuhao's mouth. His eyes gazed at something faintly discernible in the distance, at a cloud that was drifting through the air. He maintained his original position, quietly awaiting something. Suddenly, a ball of black mist descended from the sky without warning and blanketed his position. Hua Yuhao looked a little shocked as he immediately dispelled his imitation and revealed himself from the air. TSK, TSK. I thought, which other powerful soul master could it be? But you're just a little kid. You're just a soul sage, and you dare to spy on the Sun Moon Empire's army camp. A hoarse voice that wasn't pleasing to the ear could be heard. Two black shadows suddenly appeared 50 meters away from Hua Yuhao as the cloud that he was staring at disappeared. Large and disheveled black mist bore down on him in a circle from all directions and surrounded Hua Yuhao, while the two black shadows stared at him vigorously. 2 yellow, 2 purple, and 5 black soul rings glowed on the person who was speaking. The other black shadow, who didn't make a sound, had an even stronger combination of soul rings. He had 1 yellow, 3 purple, and 5 black soul rings. They were both titled Doluor. Furthermore, the auras emanating from their bodies felt very sinister and evil. Evil soul masters! Hua Yuhao exclaimed in surprise. Kid, don't you think it's a little too late for you to realize that? The man in black who was speaking before drifted towards Hua Yuhao as he spoke. A bluish-black light gradually grew larger behind him. This bluish-black light shadow looked incredibly terrifying. In the beginning, it looked like a skull, but Hua Yuhao could only see after it swelled that it was a pale human face. He couldn't even tell if this face was male or female, but there were countless disgusting bluish-black maggots crawling all over it. The other man in black didn't make a sound from the beginning to the end. Light glowed from behind him as well, but this light was dark green, and condensed into an enormous centipede with a single eye on its forehead that swayed gently in the air. Hua Yuhao's face was completely pale. Wow, 2 evil titled Doluor. Evil titled Doluor were frightening individuals comparable to transcendent Doluor in the world of soul masters. Hua Yuhao's body seemed to tremble from fright. It's too late to be afraid. The two of us wouldn't have had to make this trip if we didn't have to capture you alive. All right, kid, follow us down. Otherwise, I'll let you have a taste of my avenging spirit mask. I'll let it consume your spirit bit by bit, and that feeling, TSK, TSK. Avenging spirit mask. This was the first time Hua Yuhao had heard of a martial soul like that. It seemed like a mutated martial soul, and it was definitely an evil martial soul. 2 seniors, I'm just a scout responsible for collecting intelligence. Why do you have to cause trouble for me? Hua Yuhao forced a laugh as he spoke. Ha 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 ha. Kid, you don't have to insult us with words. Are you going to let us capture you without resisting, or do we have to make a move on you? Hua Yuhao gritted his teeth and said, I can let you capture me, but can I know your titles? At least, I will know whose hands I've fallen into. The evil soul master who possessed the avenging spirit mask said, there's no harm in telling you. I am the masquerade Doluor, and this is the heavenly centipede Doluor. I didn't expect us to meet again. You're a spy after all. A familiar voice could be heard, and it came from the heavenly centipede Doluor, who hadn't spoken at all until this point. He suddenly lifted the black veil that was covering his face and revealed himself. Hua Yuhao's expression changed a little when he saw him, and that was because he knew this evil soul master. He was the Duskwater Alliance master, and he seemed to be the Holy Ghost Church's second elder. Hua Yuhao had always been careful, and that was the reason why he would always change his appearance even when he was conducting aerial surveillance. However, The look that he had chosen to take on was the same as the identity he had used to participate in the Radiant City Elite Soul Engineering Tournament, Tang Wu. That was the reason why he was immediately recognized by Nangong Wan. "We finally meet again, Alliance Master Nangong," Huo Yuhao replied, but his expression seemed a lot calmer than before. Nangong Wan gritted his teeth when he saw Huo Yuhao. Huo Yuhao had helped the Duskwater Alliance eventually win the championship during the Radiant City Elite Soul Engineering Tournament, and he took away all his prizes. Nangong Wan was prepared to take him in as his disciple back then, but because Huo Yuhao's performance was far too outstanding, and especially because of his necromancy, even the Holy Ghost Church's vice leader paid attention to him. She believed that he was the Holy Ghost Church's holy son, who had yet to appear in this world. But who knew that Huo Yuhao would immediately disappear after the competition, and take away countless rare metals, the Sun Moon Divine Needle, and a Class 9 stationary Soul Cannon Shell, Annihilation Storm. The Sun Moon Divine Needle was still alright, as the Star Sky Doluor, Yi Yulin had taken that out. However, it wasn't easy for the Holy Ghost Church to obtain Annihilation Storm, and the original intention was for it to urge Soul Engineers to put effort into the competition. But Huo Yuhao had vanished into thin air, in the mess of that enormous explosion, without a trace. In the aftermath of the great explosion, Nangong Wan had tried hard to find him, but how could he find Tang Wu? And now he had met Huo Yuhao once more today, and Nangong Wan could tell from where he had appeared that he was a spy. Furthermore, he was the Heavenly Soul Empire's spy. How could he not be angry? The vice leader had berated him for not being able to find Huo Yuhao. "Yes, it's been a long time. Should I call you Tang Wu, or by another name?" Nangong Wan said coldly. Huo Yuhao smiled plainly and said, "You can just call me Tang Wu." Of course, he wouldn't be so foolish as to reveal his identity. Furthermore, he wasn't just a soul engineer when he met Nangong Wan back then. He had also presented himself as a necromancer. "All right, Tang Wu. I want to see how you can run away this time," Nangong Wan said coldly. Huo Yuhao grinned and said, "Run? Why would I run? The two of you are the ones who shouldn't run away later." Hey! The Masquerade Doluor and the Heavenly Centipede Doluor were momentarily stunned as a green shadow bolted towards them like a ghost from far away. It took but a few blinks of the eye for her to arrive beside Huo Yuhao. Wasn't that the green shadow Doluor, Elder Song? Huo Yuhao had departed at the same time as Elder Song, but they didn't travel together. Huo Yuhao was attracting the attention of the ground-based aerial surveillance soul tools from 4,500 meters up in the sky, while Elder Song watched him from 6,000 meters. 6,000 meters was the limit that humans could reach, and nobody but Transcendent Doluor could reach that altitude. The Sun Moon Empire's surveillance soul tools couldn't possibly reach that height. However, Huo Yuhao didn't expect two evil-titled Doluor who wanted to capture him alive. This was an unexpected but pleasant surprise. If he could capture a titled Doluor, it would be a lot easier for him to discover Tang Ya's location. This video will end here.